Hello and welcome to the program. I'm Phil McLeod. Have you ever held back on doing something for London, worried that one person just can't make that much of a difference? Well, tonight some encouragement and two quite different examples of the wonderful difference one person with a good idea or two and the determination to see it through can make in our community. In our second half hour, you'll meet Peter Inch, and it's no joke to say that if you give Peter an inch, he'll get you a curling bonspiel. In fact, he's done it not just once, but 3 times. His most recent success has been to secure the Men's National Curling Championship, the fabled Bray, for London in 2011. But first, a name you'll probably remember and maybe wondered, what ever happened to Mary Bray? She was one of London's most successful and certainly its most glamorous developers in the 1980s and early 90s. Her passion back then was saving historic buildings, and her concern, often expressed, was City Council's lack of interest in the gradual deterioration of the downtown. Then she left for opportunities elsewhere, in the US and in Asia. Well, she's back, has been for a few years in fact, and at age 70 is still glamorous, and is still doing deals and is still concerned about the downtown, and we're glad to have her on our program tonight. Mary, welcome to the program.
Thank you.
So I guess the obvious question is, for the last 10 years or so, where have you been and what have you been doing?
Well, I left in 1991 when GST came in. I sold all my properties and just left. I was going to the States, looking at their S&L stuff down there that was very cheap, condo conversion, all that kind of thing. And anyway, ended up in Nassau and in kind of in the hotel business. I was looking at a hotel and doing a condo conversion on it too, and selling it to these workers from the British Colonial across the street. There's big expansion, and Atlantis was just opening up at that time in, I suppose, the mid-90s. And met this guy from Amsterdam, and he had a hotel on the beach, and he was going to lose it. And anyhow, I came up with this idea to take all the guys from across the street that were doing all the construction work and fill them up in the hotel and sell them the units. Anyway, long story. We ended up just selling. I sold it to the hotel people next door. And he said, well, before I give you any money, you got to go to Bulgaria and help me with a couple more hotels. So we went to Bulgaria on the Black Sea, and I fixed up a couple of hotels there and made a lot of money. It was the right time. Anyhow, and ended up owning half a hotel back here in London that was half mine.
Part of the deal.
Yeah, part of the deal. But I lived very frugal, and he sent me all over the world. We went to Kuwait, and we looked at doing real estate in Kuwait, and all those rich Arabs that were quite interested in Canada, and London, Ontario sounds like London, England to them. So they were all excited to come to, do investments, and I had a lot of different projects in this area. Anyway, then September the 11th came, and I thought, oh God, I think I better get out of there. And I came back here basically in 2002, and we put the Park Lane Hotel, and we changed it from student housing to a condo conversion, to make affordable housing downtown, selling a condo unit for $39,900 and nice new kitchen and bathroom, and it was a good idea. Anyway, it's still kind of there. We're working on it, and then other than that, came back, and all of a sudden there was this stimulus money for downtown, and ended up getting interested in Dundas Street. It was so bad. It's just the real estate had gone from. I owned that real estate in 1990, and I sold it in 91, basically in that time frame. And it was like worth $1.5 million. And today, that it's worth $250,000, such a deal. But the taxes are still outrageous, and it's just hard to. It's a difficult project, but anyway. So that's kind of where I am right now.
Well, that's a story.
That's a lot, yeah. And
So what's it like to be back in sleepy old London, Ontario after Bulgaria and the Middle East? And
oh, well, you know, London's a beautiful city. The only problem is our downtown. I still think we have, you know, our main street, Dundas Street, is disastrous. I'm sorry. We've never had so many vacancies, especially in the block, you know, where the market is. That block is really bad. My block, too, is where the Century is. And we've missed a lot of opportunities where we could have had investment. The casino guys would have come in and spent $150 million and done a big casino and a five-star hotel, which we need downtown.
Mm-hmm.
And anyway, we have to think forward as I see it. And I'm thinking that London has really education and hospital and the whole arts and culture thing that we can use that and do something for downtown. I think if you know, we moved the arts and culture with Fanshawe and Western downtown, there's a lot of big buildings empty, and we could have the hotel restaurant management from Fanshawe, move it downtown. Fanshawe has TV. The kids do, the students do TV. Why don't we have that downtown? You know,
Yeah.
you know, have all their, you know, you could have fashion design and interior decorating, and have a little shop on the Dundas Street where they could, you know, maybe sell some of their things. And anyway, I think it would. The one thing we really have to do is get a population base. I think at least 25,000 people living downtown.
What's holding us back, do you think? I mean, you've been away for a while, you came back, and there have been some changes here, but what's holding us back?
I think they don't get the idea that we have to have residential in downtown. We have
When
to,
you say they, this is the
the
city
city,
doesn't get it? Yeah.
city, and the Downtown Business Association. I think, you know, they don't realize how important it is to have people living there. Makes the streets safer, and it just, you know, it gives you a reason to have a grocery store and more shopping. It brings in tourism when you have more people living there and more shopping and interesting kind of artsy kind of things that maybe you're not going to have in a shopping mall, but you would have downtown.
We do have, I think, more residential downtown now than when you were here in the 80s and early 90s. We have, you know, three, I guess, or now four, I guess, high rises that are rental accommodation. I mean, isn't that a good start?
Yes, definitely. It's the best thing that ever happened. And that actually happened because the impost charges out in suburbia went from about $8,000 to $23,000.
This is the development charges.
The development
Yeah.
charges. And when I was doing all that convert to rent downtown, I had the development charges waived because we didn't need roads and sewers and buses and, I don't know, all those things that they say.
Yep.
And so anyway, it really brought all those people downtown as well. There wasn't a tax incentive for residential. If you do rental residential downtown, your taxes are phased in over 10 years, and that was a huge bonus. It needs to go not just for rental, though. That should be for condos as well, so that we get people like you moving downtown in a nice condo. You know, the baby boomers that are coming up right now. And
Is that why we're not seeing the big condo boom downtown that, say, Toronto has, because of that tax incentive issue? There are very few condos in the downtown area.
Yeah, no, there isn't, because it hasn't been a priority, I don't think, with City Hall or the LDBA. They don't see that it's such a, I think I gave you some information. I was talking about it years, and, you know, I don't know how many years. You have to have that population base to make downtown work. And they've, you know, spent $150 million in arenas and market and library, and we needed an arena, but it could have been just a little moved off that beautiful block. It should have been Performing Arts Center, and I'm still.
Well, we'll get to the Performing Arts Center
Sorry,
later. I know that's a big,
it's something we should have had many years
we'll
ago.
talk about that. Let me just maybe back up a bit to sort of catch viewers up who might remember the face and say, well, why do I remember Mary Bray? So take us back to the early 80s when you first came to London and some of the projects that you were involved in back then that we would have remembered your name being attached to.
Well, when I was in Ingersoll, before I moved to London, I had taken 28 acres just outside of Ingersoll in a beautiful old house. It was a gorgeous house. And I rezoned it, made it into Elmhurst. It was called Elmhurst when it was built. That's what it was called. And we put decorating like would have been in the house, 1867.
Which today we know as Elmhurst Inn, which
yes.
is just along the 401, yeah?
Yeah, exactly. And it was a lot of work. I did all the renovation,
And you ran that place for a while.
Yeah, we were busy. We turned the tables like 3 times on a Friday, almost every night of the week, actually. It was just at the time, it was a kind of a novelty, and it was a great location between Toronto and Detroit, and, we had a base of Ingersoll, Tillsonburg, and Woodstock, and London. So it was, the first year I opened, I was written up in Where to Eat in Canada. So for somebody, I never had owned a restaurant before, but it was a good idea. I put some good people together. I think I'm pretty good at putting some good people together, and we worked hard.
Then you came to London. So what?
And then, I split up. My husband, we split up anyway. And that was in '82 I came here. And by '90, the next year, in a year's time, all of a sudden, I got lost out in suburbia. And so I ended up just downtown in Old North and Old South mostly because I wasn't too good with directions. Come from the farm years ago. Then Ingersoll, and London was the big city. So I became really, really focused on, because I like old buildings too, the heritage part of it. So I focused on the downtown, Old South and Old North, but mostly I settled on Richmond and Central, and Jim Bob Ray is in my old office, is where I was. So I became really interested in that area. And real estate along Richmond was so cheap. It was very cheap. And so that's when I kind of started buying, because I'm sitting there seeing all these deals and buying them cheap, and then somebody would want to buy it, and so I flip it over and so that's kind of how I started in that area. Dundas Street in 82, 85 even, was so overpriced. I never sold anything along Dundas. It was the most expensive real estate in the city, and now it's the cheapest. It's time to buy real estate on Dundas. If we could just kind of get city going in the right direction, I think we could do a lot of things downtown. If we ever could move Fanshawe, if they had, I'm back to the performing arts, but in the 80s, downtown was so alive when I came here. It's sinful what's happened to it. And anyway, that's and then I started selling real estate, and nobody knew who I was. I mean, who's, Mary Mouse from, I don't know, the farm, I don't know. And so I thought, well, I had a friend in the car business, and so I said, I need a Rolls Royce. I need people to know who I am. And I needed a new car. My other one was, I don't know. Anyway, so we went to Toronto, we bought this Rolls Royce. Like for $23,000, it was cheaper than a new Cadillac. And it was all nice and shiny, but it again didn't take me too far, but it was okay because I was just kind of downtown. And so that people got to know that. And I knew my business. I'd kind of been in real estate since I was 18. I drew blueprints for my first house and kind of started when I was 18 or 19. So,
well, you've had an interesting career. There's no doubt about that. We're going to take a short break. We'll be back with Mary Bray and her views about what we need to do to downtown London today.